Are you gambling with your subcontractors right now and you don't even know it? Could you be opening yourself up to tremendous financial, personal, and business risk because of the way you're employing your labor force? Brandon Lewis here with the Painters Academy. Do hit the subscribe button here. Leave us a comment. Follow us wherever you get your info, on our podcast, on YouTube, on our social media channels. And do go to paintersacademy.com, request your free report, the 5 keys to really be in the know as a painting contractor. So first I want to say that I am not anti-subcontractor. I have seen employee methods, or models rather, work. I've seen subcontractor models work. I've seen hybrid models work. But I've also seen them fail. And when they do fail, it's not because of the model, it's because of the owner, it's because of the process, the procedures, typically the lack of systems. And so subcontractors offer some very genuine advantages. It's a fixed labor expense if you're paying them properly. If you're paying a subcontractor by the hour, they're not really a subcontractor. You're just not paying their taxes, and that can cost you a whole lot. Further, they allow you to adjust for seasonality. So many folks have this fixed W-2 workforce, and as a result, when summer comes, they can't quite get the peak season demand done, and then later they have to fire people, let folks go, when subcontractors would probably fill in that peak season hump a lot better to get the demand. Lower levels of investment. You don't have to get the vehicles, the equipment, the insurance, the gas, and you're not married to them for employment. A lot of painters that own businesses feel like they have to offer cradle-to-grave employment the moment they hire somebody for 40 hours a week from now to the end of time. But that is not the case with subcontractors. But there are serious risks involved with subcontractors. You can run into general liability and workers' compensation risk. I know a lot of folks, that get a workers' comp audit, and at the end of the year they owe $100,000, $50,000 because their subcontractors aren't insured. Something happens. You have issues with unexpected expenses coming in through those audits. Policy exclusions. So there's a lot of insurance companies, and you think you're covered because the way that you're working with your subcontractors, and then some big accident happens or something goes wrong on a job. Or worse yet, one of these subcontractors does something nefarious, steals something from someone's home, assaults them, you name it. And now your insurance carrier is saying, Skippy, that's not in the 15,000 pages of insurance declarations you can see in subsection 13, sub A, part B, that this is not included. So you got to be careful with this stuff. There are also legal risks. If something happens, it harms somebody, damages somebody, even if it's the subcontractor themselves, you may be proved to be neglectful in a court. Background checks, when you can't run those with subcontractors, you don't do it properly, something happens, again, it's negligence. You should have been checking to see that the gentleman that rolled off a prison cot that had a prior murder charge has now assaulted one of your own employees and broken his arm, and so now you're liable. And safety in general, right? You don't know what subcontractors are doing out there. And then there are financial risks for dual employment. What's dual employment? It is when you pay people like subcontractors, but you manage them like W-2s. Somebody calls and complains. It takes one phone call. And then the IRS come in and they say, okay, you've been running approximately 10 people for 7 years. You owe all their back taxes for the last 7 years. Here's your $250,000, $500,000 bill. You owe it from now until the time you die. I have seen this happen many times. And so that's not something you want to be in with, and all it takes is a phone call to a government agency to make it happen. So what I will tell you is neither the government, nor the lawyers, nor the insurance companies will care about your reasoning about how they're subs. Well, he said he wanted to be a sub. Well, they don't wear my t-shirts. Like, they don't care about any of that. If you don't have the paperwork and the processes in place to prove to them that they are genuine subcontractors and being treated as such, they will take you to the cleaners. It's all about the paperwork. It's not really even about what happens out in the field necessarily. And so here's how you can protect yourself if you're gambling with your subcontractors right now. First, get a good subcontract labor attorney. Not your Uncle Jimmy, Who's a divorce lawyer that's going to go into LexisNexis and pull up a subcontractor agreement? Ideally, you want somebody who has litigated a case or several cases successfully with the IRS, with labor boards, you name it, and knows what the law says and can write contracts specific for what you're looking for and according to the federal laws and the laws of your state. Don't pull one off the internet. I see this all the time. Well, oh, Jimmy Bob in Louisiana sent me this, and I'm in Texas or whatever. No, get one for your own state from a licensed professional. It might cost you $1,000, $2,000, but boy, it is peace of mind well spent. You need to have subcontract agreements that are written and projects agreement. Okay, every time you have a master agreement, subcontract agreement, and then you have project agreements that they sign in order to take the jobs. They should invoice you for every job they do. Real companies invoice people. They should have an LLC, if at all possible. They should have their own insurance, and you should be a certificate holder on that insurance. The last thing you want is for some big thing to happen, and you discover all of a sudden that the subcontractor's not insured, or you go through your workers' comp audit, and the subcontractor's not insured, and you have to pay for their insurance. Background checks for vendors. I would strongly consider doing this. I would hire only subcontractors that are two-man crews that are owner-operated. Those tend to be the best ones that work out, and you can help them through the process and make sure that they've got the paperwork so that they can work for you. And of course, typically you pay them more, right? You've got to pay them for the labor burden and the insurance burden and the hourly pay rate that you pay the subs after you do your production rate estimate with the labor budget, but it's well worth it. Limited direct management. You need to get a checklist from this attorney on the do's and the don'ts. I'm not an attorney. I don't play one on TV. I thought about it, but I don't play one on TV. And you really need to make sure that you're compliant. And a good subcontract attorney can say, hey, you can do this, you can't do that. Some things typically that you can't do. They can't be wearing your shirts. They can't be having your vans logoed. They can't be told what to do every step of the way. You can't be managing them every day. Start times, stop times. There's all kinds of weird rules and even percentage rules that seem to move. Well, if they work for you more than 60% of the time, they're not a subcontractor, they're an employee. All this stuff, because the federal government doesn't want anyone to have any contract relationships. They want everyone paying their taxes so that they can, manage the spend so efficiently, as we have seen recently. So those are things you need to think about. But don't just be lazy and pay your subcontractors inappropriately. You want to make sure that you're doing everything above board, because if you've been in business for a long time, if you've got a paid-for house, if you've got assets and resources, you don't want to have hundreds of thousands of dollars taken out of your pocket because you didn't file the paperwork. Does it mean it's going to be harder to recruit folks that meet these criteria? Yes. But don't let a hiring and a recruitment problem keep you from doing what's necessary with your subcontractors. Keep your nose clean. Make sure you're following the rules. And if some bureaucrat or attorney comes up and something should happen, you need to have enough paperwork and a big enough paperwork trail that you could bury them in it. You could burn a wet mule with the paperwork. That's how much paperwork you need. When bureaucrats come calling and contractors have no paperwork, they just throw them through the ringer. And it's hell for 18 months. Very stressful. It's a huge time suck. I've watched it damage business owners. Sometimes the process of working to preserve your company against predatory government is more stressful than the money you lose. Okay, because time and peace of mind is very expensive, and it can affect the way your business goes. So, how likely is this to happen to you? Well, it's not super duper likely, especially if you have a small company. The bigger your company gets, the more visible it is, the bigger deal this is. But it can happen to anybody. We have members that have gone through absolute teetotal horror stories, and I don't want you to be one of them. I want you to keep your business compliant, do things above board, so that you have a business that can produce things with low risk, and ultimately one day you can sell it to somebody and harvest the equity. Finally, I would suggest, if you are going to manage your subcontractors, that you do it over the phone, that you don't do it through text messages, and you don't do it through emails. Paper trails are usually never your friend. Conversations, and he said, she said, it's a little bit different. If you've got paperwork and just a bunch of verbal conversations, and if your paperwork's in order, and if your company is structured and you're protected, you'll be just fine. Guys, if you have questions about running a painting business more efficiently, effectively, if you've been doing this 10, 15 years and the money's not piling up, you can't seem to grow, you're stuck, you know you've got fundamental business problems. Don't go through the busy season making half as much money, a third as much money, which is what most painters make. From what I see in my diagnostics, I'm telling you, most of you out there that are watching this are what I call doublers or triplers. If you just fix a handful of things, really about 7 or 8 business systems, you will watch your year over year and month over month income go up 100, 200, 300%. You can do the work, but if you're doing it in a way that's not very smart or isn't best practices or doesn't maximize profits or reduce the problems, you're just a painter. You can't be a painter and have a painter mindset and a crew leader mindset and own a company. They're 2 different mindsets. They're 2 different processes. You got to get serious about the business end of the business. And if I can ever help you, let me know. Just email me, Brandon@paintersacademy.com, Brandon@paintersacademy.com. If you want to find out more about our programs, go to paintersacademy.com, download the free report that's there. And finally, I take phone calls, 423-800. Oh, is that right? 423-205-5600. No, that's the wrong number. 423-800-0520. 423-800-0520. If it's wrong, look it up on the internet, okay? I've got 2 companies. Sometimes I forget the phone numbers. Guys, love you, mean it. I hope you're off to a roaring start in this spring repaint rush, but let's make sure we protect the profits we build. BL, until next time, signing off. See you guys.